That is one incredible score, Hayden. Just so much nuance, so beautifully layered and textured, and so much attention to detail. Of course, having said all of that, I'm going to be picking at more and more details, but that's all right. That's what we're here for, right? Okay, so let's start off at the beginning. Okay, so here we've got an elevation of the harmonized melody, an octave higher than in the piano score, and that's all good. Now, throughout this entrance, and then later on in the piece, you got a really prolific use of flutter tonguing, and I mean, you can kind of hear in the mock-up that it has a tendency. It sort of almost sounds like somebody clearing their throat sometimes. There's that less than delicate sound, and also you're giving it to instruments that tend to. I mean, when you give flutter tonguing to reed instruments, it's not that they can't play it. It's just that it's a somewhat coarse sound, right? So you have all this incredibly delicate stuff going on. I'd say clarinets maybe a little bit better than double reeds. I mean, and that's all possible, but like the instruments that seem to do it the most delicately, like you were scoring this to be incredibly delicate. So is there any way that you can keep it mainly in the flutes? See, that would be my very first thing that I would ask. So, if you were to, would it be possible for one of the flutes to be covering this, and maybe the clarinet to be covering this, and then like maybe the other instruments could be oboe and the other clarinet and so on and so forth. Do you know what I mean? Like if you could just really, as much as possible, if you absolutely had to, if you could keep it in your the flutes as much as possible, or when it is being played by another instrument, like in the string section, then I'd say that there's absolutely no need for the winds to be playing it, right? Like for instance, right in here, the violins will essentially cover what's going on here in the oboes, right? And it's a much better sound. Like the oboes just really have a, kind of almost a squawking sound, even really softly done. It's it's like a kind of has a sort of a tissue paper and comb kind of a sound, right? So I just say really watch out with this much flutter tongue in non-flute instruments. I would say maybe a little bit in clarinet, but yeah, I mean, and having said that, there's some people who sort of specialize in it, like they can make it sound kind of unearthly on their oboe, but like I would certainly say just really avoid it in English horn and so on. Yeah, so I mean, so that's the first hitch for me, and I almost feel like is it even necessary, right? Is any of the flutter tonguing necessary? Maybe some here in the flutes, but like, what if it just didn't have any, right? What if like this were played by violas tremolo, right? I mean, what if you were to just basically avoid instruments to which it's kind of not natural and kind of sort of coarse sounding, and just kept the flutter tonguing in the flutes and so on and so forth, and maybe even eased back on it a bit then I think that you would get a much better sound overall. All right. So here, all you have to do is not mark anything. Here you're saying sounds up one octave, which is the way that the harpists prefer. Another way of putting that is pitch played, right? So in other words, like the pitch that they are playing is the note that's intended, right? And then it sounds an octave higher. The other way would be pitch sounding, right? So in other words, like you would be telling the harpist to play the to play, for instance, this on the C string down an octave. But I don't think any of that is necessary. This is the standard for harpists, so just don't even worry about it. Only mark it if you're doing something non-standard, right? Sol A for, I see, and here this is unnecessary as well. Sol A for natural harmonics. Most people will just grab the open string right there, I would say. Yeah, it's just easier. Yep, just leave it up to the player. It'll be fine. I know you want the sort of really, really icy sound of the open string, but the thing is that all of these pitches, you have a whole row of pitches that are going to be played with, with a touch 4 harmonic, or here you have a touch 5. So it really kind of is unnecessary for you to tell them which string to use here, right? Just leave it alone. They'll play this as the octave node. They'll play this as the note of the fourth on the open A string, and they'll continue on from there. All right, so muted strings. So why is this? There's no need for the parentheses either, right? So is divisi consort, right? Because like this might not be muted, right? So just tell them that the parentheses here, it would just be confusing. It'd be like what they could or couldn't. Like it. Oh, by the way, it just you're the composer. This is your work. You're the arranger. This is your score. You tell them what it's what, and you don't have to put parentheses on it. All right. Okay, so by this time, Hayden, you probably have watched a few other scores. You've heard me crab a bit about people dropping the piano's slurring marks onto the winds and strings and so on. I would just say make sure that your phrasing matches up. Right, so I mean, why are the clarinets? Why do they have shorter slurs than your flutes, right, and piccolo, right, or your flute and piccolo? So I mean, just have them all match up, and you might as well go, ta ta, right, and you don't even need to slur across here, ta ta. Just give the downbeat some emphasis by tonguing on it. Because here you give it, right, ta 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 bum bum bum. Right, so just get rid of that here. You don't need it, right? And then kind of going here, you're really slurring across a lot of distance here in your first violins and violas. What if you were to just not slur from these pitches and then slur from here, right? Or you could slur up and then you could slur across these two, whatever. This should match, I think, right? But I think that this is a little, even in the winds, Yeah, do you really want that ta ta? Why not just ta ta ta? Doesn't that feel a little bit more natural? And then here, you have tied half notes. Just give us one single tied whole note. Right? That's all that's needed. There's nothing about this that it is absolutely not required for there to be two separate tied notes in this bar. Because if, let's say that this was loud, and then you wanted suddenly like subito piano on the tied, at the end of the tie, or you wanted some dynamic change to happen from here or something, or you wanted a fermata on this beat or something, then yes, you would require a separate written note, but there is no need for it. So this should just be a dotted whole note. Okay. So that's not needed. Okay, so this is cool though. I love the little muted trumpet right in here. and the bass clarinet and piccolo and so on. That's a really nice combination. And I love the fact that you're controlling the dynamic of the trumpet just to really make sure that it doesn't overwhelm things. Yeah, but I feel this flutter tonguing right in here in the clarinets is completely unnecessary, right? We got similar pitches being tremoloed in the strings. Just let the tremolo be in the strings and just have your clarinets played very softly, right? I think that's just a better strategy. Okay, so so other than that, see, like me having to say, oh, flutter tongue or not, or slurs or not, or whatever, I feel it's actually scored fairly well. I don't have a big problem with the treatment of the dynamics here, although I think crescendo needs some kind of, like, say here you're going pianissimo, nuance. You've got a nuance here in the middle, and then you have a crescendo to P, right? And then what about these players, like crescendo to triple pianissimo? Where's the destination dynamic? Where are you headed, and why isn't the double bass player headed there too? What's going on here? Piano, crescendo, pianissimo. Where is the peak of your crescendo? You got to tell us that. But I mean, otherwise, I don't have a huge problem with the way that the dynamics are managed here. I think it's fairly workable, and I think that the contrasts and the mixing of the timbres and so on is fine. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I don't even think you need to put ordinario. Like, I think the first time that you see this, yeah, FLZ, right? Period, or FLZ if you're in North America. And then here, ord for ordinario, you don't even need it, right? Because there is no more beaming, right? There's no more of these tremolo beams. So you don't need the ordinario, and you don't need to mention that it's flutter tonguing again. We get it, right? You only need to mention it the first time, and then after that, it is just what it is, all right? Okay. But I mean, I think it's really cool, like a nice soft effect in the flutes. If there was a way of rescoring this, so certain pitches like these were in the flutes, or some other kinds of things were in the flutes, I think that it would be a way stronger score and way softer and more delicate. But I think that the flutter tonguing in the reeds is not what you think it is. Okay, it has it kind of sets people's teeth on edge, right? It is. I mean, you can even hear a little bit of that in the mock-up, right? There's a sort of a tooth. Is it tooth edging or tooth setting on edge? Anyways, so maybe you like that sound. Maybe you're completely well aware of this. You're an oboe player. You play flutter tonguing all the time, and you've gotten it down to a fine art, and that's cool. But I just feel that it's possibly not what you might think it is. But all of these harmonics, artificial and natural harmonics and everything, I think that's all really cool, really fine. As delicate as this is, you could have eased off a bit here and then had your flutes playing some, flute and piccolo playing some of their harmonics, right? Flute harmonics could be really, really gorgeous. Limited range, but they just have this wonderful sound to them. All right, now here on this next page, things start to pick up steam, and once again, not a huge problem. I mean, it is very, very. You do have a lot of management of dynamics, just like really. Really having different dynamic character in different sections, and I mean, normally that kind of thing is just it gets a little tortured after a while. But I think that the way that you have dealt with it here is fine. Except I just really feel like the ends of these, the ends of these phrases, like you just have this phrase going up, this interpretation of the left-hand patterns. This is all good, okay, and you don't need to mark divisi in parentheses here. Just mark divisi. Okay, and just mark it on all the parts. Okay, so So you're pushing forwards, and I feel it just kind of doesn't really, like, it feels like it should dovetail into something that is going on here in the winds, but I just feel it kind of hangs over. It's sort of, it sort of is calling attention to itself. It's sort of like just kind of the leftover bit, of pizza or something like that, or something, just I feel like it's reaching upwards to connect with something, and it doesn't. So maybe that's an intentional thing, in which case, fine. If that was the effect, then you achieved it, right? But I think that just that it's distracting. I'm just wondering whether or not it could have just ended, right? Or rather than going the extra eighth note, whether it could have just ended on the downbeat, and merged into the pitches of the winds. But maybe that's just like a stylistic thing. That's something that I would prefer, right? I love these soft, this really ultra soft scoring right here in your horns and heavy brass. That's really lovely, and I just love this sort of foghorn note down here with the tuba. Some tuba players are going to say, "Oh, what are you doing?" I think that it's fine just to mark piano diminuendo, and then you could just hide all of these. And I think I think the tuba player and the conductor and so on would understand that they don't intend you to play softer every single time, right? So yeah, see, so you don't have to mark piano every single time. All right, so once you've set up that pattern, it's like a romantic thing, isn't it? Just using the hairpin as force within a larger phrase, force or restraint. But yeah, really nice blend with the double basses and so on. Some tuba players might say, "Oh, what, you want me to play soft way down there? What?" But then other tuba players, it's just like, "Oh yeah, I could do that all day long." So, all right. I remember once I had scored some low staccato for tuba, and somebody had taken it to a tuba group and asked, and a lot of tuba players had said, "Oh no, blah blah blah, you can't do that," and so on and so forth. And it's like, well, this score is for a professional orchestra, and I have no problem with the professional tuba players that I've worked with. And then all of a sudden it was sort of, oh, well, of course that's fine, right? So anyway, but I think that's playable, but it is going to tend to it is. I mean, the fact that you have forte, down to pianissimo, I think will really help that blend. But you could have also scored that for contrabassoon, and it would work twice as well and be half as difficult for the player. Okay, then once again we've got for instance, I think that this will have an edge to it which will be unpleasant in the long run. This flutter tonguing for the oboe, and I would say just in general, keep it with the same player. You'd be better off with this effect to have two flute players playing flutter tonguing rather than one flute player and one oboe player, right? And if you've already established flutter tonguing before, you don't need to tell us that this is a flutter tonguing mark, right? All you need to do is just tell us which player is playing. I would just leave it in the firsts, right? If that's what you were going to do, rather than going from first to second, rather than trading off between the players. Yeah, so this is all good. It's nice. I just really love this. Beautiful, fluid, flowing. Just so nicely done. Yeah. I just love this. You're really making it more about the strings and the left-hand pattern, and I feel that that transformation of the material is really strong. And then of course the theme emerges, right? But I mean, how far does it emerge? Right before you go to mezzo forte, could you have just gone straight to mezzo forte with everything, right? Rather than piano crescendo to what? To piano again? So, yes, I think you just need to proofread those dynamics a little bit. What if they just went crescendo straight to mezzo forte and everybody else joined in, like mezzo piano, crescendo to mezzo forte or something like that, just coming in at the end of the curve? Yeah, but this is lovely right in here. And then the So sorry. So the risk is, having done so much of this interpretation, whether this is overkill, but I think it's fine myself. My problem, my warning bell in terms of overkill is the glissando for the harp. So, I mean, try an experiment. Just, make a copy of this score and take out every other glissando, right? And I think you'll see that less is more, right? So just like, I think it's, like these are 2-bar phrases, right? So by throwing in an upsweep on every single bar, I feel it's sort of interrupting the meaning of the phrase. Bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam, bam. I think that works better than bam, 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 bam. I mean, it just like I feel it sort of it just feels overused, right? So I just say, pick where you want it to be. Either take the pushing into the beginning of each phrase or going into the middle of each phrase. Yeah, this is all really fun. Beautiful, the way that this is scored and the doubling and the lower winds and so on. I highly approve of all of that. And then, all right, so here we get into some stuff that is potentially a little problematic. Now, people probably noticed that there were some weird hang-ups, I think that this A and maybe this E got held onto for longer, and I think that's because of that's the playback system sort of struggling to figure out, where the fermata is and so on. Okay, I think in a situation like this, you've had 3 voices. This is really weird. You would need to offset things, right? Maybe have why can't these pitches all be in order, right? Why can't this be the low note and these two be the way that you got it scored? It looks like this is the third player. You got your third trumpet in the middle instead of your second trumpet, right? So it really should be first and second on top, third on the bottom, right? So you just see how tortured this is, right? So what if we did this? We're going to turn them all into first voice, and the way that I'm doing that is I'm just clicking Option 1, which would be Alt 1 on a PC, right? So this is really all you need, right? Because the conjoined stem on the same pitches. Now here, hang on, I'm just gonna zoom in. So you've got a hidden C right in here. Why is that hidden? All right, very strange. Okay, so this could all be expressed just as a single voice sharing a stem. So let's do that. All right, and just immediately cleaner and just so much more easy to read. Yeah, and the same thing here. You've got a hidden C in there. I wonder why. All right. Yeah, see, so that's just so much easier to read. All right. Okay. And, I love the idea of really soft trumpet and soft horns and so on. I mean, yeah, heavy brass can just be really, really soft, but you have to just be careful, how much you double them up with more agile instruments and what roles they take and so on and so forth. I would say, in the roles that you've got here, I mean, it's pretty good, except how soft can we get there up on that A and the G, right? Can we really get that down to a really fine pianissimo and then fading out to a niente? So, I mean, I would say that if you're already on pianissimo and you have a diminuendo, those players are going to get it down as soft as they can get it. And there is absolutely zero need to have a niente diminuendo mark. So all right. So once again, Hayden, if you missed the lecture on niente, don't use niente unless it's a feature that you specifically want to call the audience's attention to, right? If there is something about it like coming out of nothing, going into nothing, if you really want to have the audience focus on the novelty of the instrument being able to just take things down to where you're hearing the whisper of the bow across the string rather than any pitch, right? Or just the air coming out of the end of the clarinet tube rather than an actual played pitch on the clarinet, that kind of thing. So unless that is at play, which it is not here, right? Because the focus of the audience is on this, right? So since this is where the focus of the audience is, you do not need to go down to niente. You do not need to tell the players to do that, because the players already have, just built into their approach of playing, a way of beautifully rounding off a note at the end so that it is really kind of going down to nothing. But it's an aspect of the way that they articulate a note, right? So just let them do that. Just mark a standard diminuendo hairpin here, and that's it. That's all you need. You do not need this, right? You'll get exactly the same effect whether you have it or not, so just don't have it. Just have the standard thing. The problem with this is it's sort of a crutch. Like, you just sort of start to get used to using it all over the place, right? Anytime that you have an instrument fade out under something else, it's just like, well, this is the fade out sign. No, it's not. This is a special effect. Don't use it unless you really want this to be part of a texture where the disappearance of the tone is something that is remarkable, is something that will be remarked upon by the ear of the listener. I don't see that here. Okay, so enough of the lecture. So I was really struck by this. I loved the whole idea of clustering these tones as the little wandering melody rose over the instruments. Bassoon to English horn, that's a good place to trade off. Then English horn to flute, also a really good place to trade off. Okay, so just really nice choices right in here. Not totally seamless, but still pretty good. Okay, but then you've got your strings in the background, just having this sort of whispering cushion behind them. Oh, that's such a great idea. Okay, and then, my only possible, I'm just a little cautious about the remaining, like the harmony of the first two phrases pushing forwards into the harmony of the next two phrases. I mean, it's almost just sort of wonder whether or not everything could have faded out by here and then things could have started anew, because I think that, like, the first time around, since things are just so barren, there's a little bit of winds and brass kind of hanging over, but in terms of the effect of the winds climbing out climbing upwards and the strings doubling them, there's a lot of space, right? But then, like, this is taking up that space, right? This is sort of the beautiful whispering. It's harder for that to be remarked on, and it also is clashing with the new harmony and the upper winds and the harp, right? So anyway, so that would be my remark on holding this over. Anyhow, but it's still a really, really cool idea. Yeah, and then this is all really fun. Just really no problems with any of that. And then once again, you don't need. Yeah, if you're already a triple P and you're going diminuendo, you will get that effect anyway. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about extreme dynamics, Hayden. Okay? So think about piano as being this big world. Okay? It's a world of nuance. It is the way that certain instruments are built to sound good in a restrained way. That is like their domain. You can get a little louder and a little softer, and you can play around with it and everything else, but it is just its own happy universe. All right? Then when it gets towards the middle, right, mezzo piano, and it kind of starts to join up with mezzo forte, it's more of a kind of a doubling or a background or like a place that you go on your way to something else, rather than it is that much of a destination. Sometimes it is a destination. There have been some good mezzo piano solos. I'm not going to knock it, but generally piano is I feel the place where the instrument sounds more beautiful. All right, now then going off to the other edge, we have pianissimo, right? So extra soft. That's fine. Beautiful. Just a restraint upon restraint. Okay. And then you have triple P. So triple P, I feel, is as soft as you can play musically, right? With all of the things that are implied by that, like, nuances, control of the timbre of the instrument. The character of the instrument is still at play. The articulation is still sound. All of those things, right? Then when you get down to quadruple piano, that is as soft as you can play non-musically. So, in other words, like I was saying before, you can hear the sound of the air more than you can hear the sound of the pitch from a clarinet, for instance, or you can hear the sound of the bow rather than scraping across the string more than you actually hear the pitch that the player is playing. Right, so that's quadruple P. And then quintuple piano is just like, that is like the extreme, like subtones, or, just like the niente playing, the extreme niente playing, where just like, you'd have to be in like one of those padded rooms, that absorbs all the sound in order to be able to just pick out that one tiny little sound, right? Okay, so it's an incredible exaggeration. So just reverse everything for forte. Forte is its own little world. Mezzo forte is a bit of a grayer area, where it's more of a blending tone or a way to go somewhere, or, a moderated sound. But, the instrument is at its brightest and most characteristic in the strong mode, in the forte region, right? Then fortissimo is extra loud, right? And then triple F is as loud as the instrument can play still musically, all of the things intact, that the ability for nuance, articulation, all that other stuff, it's all still present. And then quadruple F is as loud as you could play non-musically. Okay, so just basically, and then like quadruple F is just screaming, right? It's just it's just like, it's like a car horn or something like that, or squealing of brakes. Right? It's like it's getting that far, right? So just think about that particular sound picture. Now, of course, like I feel like I'm lecturing somebody who already knows a lot about that already. But just watch out about, quadruple P. I mean, I think it's sort of, you don't even need this. You just have the diminuendo end on the C, and then you get the effect that you want. So, anyways, but really cool score. So do you want this to be da 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 rather than da? So I would write this out. Like if you really want this to be 16th notes rather than tremolo, then like then 32nd note tremolos. So I would actually write out the first beam group, and then I would add the little convenient flags over the stem, or not flags, the tremolo beams over a stem after that. But yeah, see, I just feel it's a little unclear. Like the timpani player would be really, really probably tempted to play this as a tremolo. But then here you have trill over the. So look, if you're going to use this, and this means 16th notes, I think it's fine to use a triple beam, right? For for that roll, right? Rather than a trill mark. I just think it's just easier to read. Anyway. All right, so really cool score. Really enjoyable looking at it and talking to you about it, and so that just, I really appreciate the amount of work that you put into this, like all of the little calculations, the differences and the dynamics and why you made them, and I understand most of them, and yeah, I think it's really solid work, and and it's also just really artistic. I think sometimes it gets a little bit more artistic than craft, right? So it's just bringing up the level of craft up to the point of the artistic expression that you want to make. But it's just about there. So great work, Hayden. I really appreciate that. Supporting on Patreon, being part of this very special orchestration challenge I felt, and thank you so much. Thanks everybody who is watching this and who's participating in this challenge. Whether or not you are, please leave a comment for Hayden that is helpful to him. If you even just to tell him what you thought of the piece, like what you liked about what part or so, that's something you don't need. You don't need to be a pro orchestrator to have likes and dislikes, and to have suggestions about things. So please give Hayden some constructive feedback and suggestions and plaudits, hopefully. And thanks everybody so much for being part of this, whether you're just watching it from the sidelines or you're also participating and leaving comments and being part of it. It really makes a huge difference. And especially when I'm getting such strong entries like this one and the two that I looked at before this one today, just so strong and so such great imagination being applied to things, and the ones that I got coming up are no less, right? It's just so much effort being put in, even at these this lower level of support, just where the participant has just decided to do a couple of sections. I just feel like people are just pouring everything they've got into those, into that first section or that first and second section. And that is just a wonderful thing to watch. So I appreciate it all. Thank you guys so much. And I'll see you in the next video.